The outer border of the Empire was quiet. Too quiet. Station K-317 drifted between dead stars and broken asteroid fields, its sensors sweeping empty space that had not seen conflict in over 200 years. The officers on duty were bored, relaxed, and confident. Nothing crossed this sector without permission. Nothing ever dared. Then the alarm screamed. Not a warning tone. Not a system error. A full-spectrum alert. Something the station commander had never heard in his entire career. Report. The commander snapped, rising from his chair. The sensor officer stared at his console, frozen. Unknown contact, he said slowly. No transponder. No drive signature I recognize. Size. There was a pause. Too long. That's the problem, the officer said. It doesn't stay the same. It's fluctuating. The main screen flickered to life. At first, there was nothing. Then space bent. Not exploded. Not torn. Bent. A shape emerged where there should have been an empty void. Long dark. Smooth. As if it had been carved from shadow itself. No visible weapons. No glowing engines. No markings. No heat bloom. Just a ship. And it was already inside the restricted zone. That's impossible, someone whispered. The Empire's borders were protected by layered detection nets. Anything entering space triggered alerts hours in advance. This ship had appeared without warning, without transition, without permission. How fast is it moving? The commander asked. The navigation officer swallowed. Too fast, sir. Every time we lock its speed, it changes. It's not accelerating. It's deciding. That single word sent a chill through the command deck. The commander straightened. Open a channel. Standard challenge. The signal officer complied. Broadcasting Imperial Authority code. No response. Again. Stronger. Still nothing. The ship drifted closer, its course clean and precise, like it knew exactly where the station was and exactly how close it wanted to be. Run a deep scan, the commander ordered. Weapons, crew, power source. Anything. The scan officer's hands shook as data flooded in, then vanished. I'm getting nothing, he said. No crew count. No weapon mass. No reactor type. It's like the ship refuses to exist when we look at it. The commander felt something he had not felt since his first day in uniform. Unease. Scramble interceptors, he said. Cautiously, 3 Imperial patrol ships detached from the station and burned toward the unknown vessel. Their engines flared bright and aggressive, a show of dominance. The unknown ship reacted instantly, not by fleeing. It shifted position, clean, silent, precise, appearing several thousand kilometers to the side without any visible movement between points. Every interceptor overshot empty space. Did it just? The navigation officer stopped himself. Yes, the commander said quietly. It did. The interceptors tried to turn. Their systems lagged. Navigation data conflicted. Targeting reticles refused to lock. Sir, a pilot transmitted, panic leaking into his voice. Our instruments are wrong. Space is wrong. Before the commander could respond, the unknown vessel moved again. It appeared behind the patrol ships. Close. Too close. No weapons fired. No explosions. Just a soft pulse that rippled outward like a breath. All 3 patrol ships went dark. Engines off. Weapons offline. Communications dead. They drifted, powerless but intact. The command deck erupted in chaos. Are they destroyed? No hull breach. They're alive. Life signs are stable. The commander stared at the screen. The unknown ship had not attacked. It had disabled them. Perfectly. Cleanly. Without a single casualty. That was worse. This is not a raider, the commander said. This is not a pirate. The ship turned slightly, its hull catching faint starlight. For a brief moment, the officers thought they saw patterns beneath the surface, layers within layers, like armor built over centuries. Signal from high command, the comms officer said. They want confirmation. The commander hesitated, then spoke slowly. Transmit everything. And mark this as existential priority. The unknown vessel began moving again, straight toward the station. Weapons officers raised shields. Defense cannons powered up, humming with lethal energy. Hold fire, the commander ordered. Do not provoke. The distance closed. 10,000 kilometers. 5,000. 1,000. The ship stopped. Right there. So close that every sensor screamed in overload, unable to process what it was seeing. Then the station received a signal. Not audio. Not visual. A data packet. Old. Clean. Simple. Open it, the commander said. The room went silent as the message decoded. It was not a threat. It was not a greeting. It was not a demand. It was a warning. Coordinates flashed across the screen. Systems the Empire had conquered, stripped, and forgotten. Alongside them were projections, outcomes, casualty estimates, galactic scale. At the bottom of the message, one final line appeared, written in plain, direct language. You are moving toward extinction. We are confirming whether to stop it. No signature. No name. Just one additional data tag, buried deep in the packet. An ancient classification the Empire had erased from public history. Species designation, human. The unknown vessel began charging its drive. Not to attack, to leave. And every officer on Station K. 317 understood the same terrifying truth at once. This ship had not come to fight. It had come to a decision. And whatever decision came next, the Empire was not ready for it. The Imperial Corps had not seen an emergency session in generations. The Grand Council chamber floated above the capital world, a ring of black stone and living metal suspended over a glowing planet that symbolized order, control, and permanence. For centuries, this chamber had been a place of ceremony, not panic. Debates here were slow, predictable, safe. Today, the doors sealed with a sound that echoed like a warning. Representatives from every major imperial power took their seats, their expressions tense, irritated, or openly dismissive. Holographic displays hovered above the center dais, replaying fragments of the encounter from Station K. 317. The unknown vessel. The disabled patrol ships. The impossible movement. A senior counselor struck the floor with his staff. This session is now in order. We are here because a border commander panicked. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A single ship, another counselor scoffed. No weapons fired. No casualties. Hardly an existential matter. At the far edge of the chamber, Fleet Marshal Kalen did not speak. He watched the data loop again and again, his eyes narrowing each time the vessel appeared behind the patrol ships. This was not panic, Kalen said finally. His voice cut through the chamber, sharp and cold. This was contact. Several counselors turned toward him, annoyed. With what? One demanded. A trick? A malfunction? Some relic drone drifting through space. Kalen gestured, and the display zoomed in on the sensor logs. Our fastest interceptors were outmaneuvered without acceleration. Our scans returned nothing. Not stealth, not cloaking. Nothing. That is not primitive technology. That is not luck. A counselor leaned forward. Every empire believes itself challenged eventually. We have crushed thousands of civilizations. This one will be no different. Kalen did not argue. He changed the feed. The chamber fell quiet as the warning message filled the air. Coordinates. Projections. Casualty curves rising into the billions. Entire regions collapsing in simulation after simulation. These projections, Kalen said, are accurate. I know because they align with outcomes we classified centuries ago. The word classified drew attention. Another counselor frowned. What outcomes? Kalen hesitated. The hesitation alone shifted the room. There are records, he said slowly, that were sealed before most of us were born. Records of a species we encountered at the edge of expansion. A few counselors laughed. Another myth, one asked. We have thousands. Kalen activated a secondary archive. Most of the data was corrupted, deliberately erased. Names missing. Timelines broken. But fragments remained. Images of shattered fleets. Entire sectors abandoned overnight. Trade routes rerouted permanently. Why was this sealed? A junior delegate asked. Because we did not win, Kalen said. Silence. The counselor with the staff rose slightly from his seat. That is impossible. The Empire does not retreat. Kalen met his gaze. We did. He highlighted a single surviving tag from the archive. A designation stripped of context, left behind like a scar. Humans. The word meant nothing to most of the chamber. That is not a species, one counselor said. There is no record. Because we erased it, Kalen replied. Because acknowledging it meant admitting vulnerability. A murmur spread, uncertain now, uneasy. They were small, Kalen continued. Localized. Aggressive only when cornered. They did not seek territory. They sought autonomy. When we demanded submission, they refused. And we destroyed them, someone said confidently. Kalen shook his head. No, we failed to contain them. Their fleets did not match ours in number, but their tactics, their understanding of conflict was different. They did not fight for victory. They fought for deterrence. He brought up an image, an ancient battle simulation. Human ships did not chase targets. They struck logistics, command cohesion, morale. Wars ended before they truly began. They left, Kalen said, not in defeat, in decision. They withdrew beyond our reach and marked regions of space we were warned not to enter. The council chamber buzzed now, voices overlapping. This is speculation. This is fear-mongering. These records are incomplete. Kalen raised his hand. So is the warning we just received. But it came with proof. The chamber dimmed as a live feed replaced the archive. Long-range sensors flared. Dozens of faint signals blinked into existence at the edge of Imperial detection. Not close, not advancing, simply present. Watching. A junior officer's voice echoed through the chamber. These are not ships entering space. They were already there. Our sensors are only now recognizing them. How many? Someone demanded. The officer hesitated. We don't know. The count changes every time we scan. The counselor with the staff slammed it down again. Enough. This is posturing. If this species exists, they have violated Imperial space. We respond as we always have. Kalen felt something tighten in his chest. With what? He asked. Force? They disabled our ships without killing a single crew member. That is restraint. That is control. And that, the counselor snapped back, is weakness. At that moment, another transmission arrived. Not from the unknown vessel. From one of the disabled patrol ships. Emergency systems had come back online. The pilot's face appeared on the central display. He was pale, breathing hard. They fixed us, the pilot said. All systems. No damage. No trace of intrusion. The chamber stilled. Did they communicate? Kalen asked. The pilot nodded slowly. Indirectly. They injected corrected navigation data into our systems. It's better than what we had before. Did they say why? Someone asked. The pilot swallowed. No. But our sensors. They're different now. Clearer. Faster. A chill moved through the chamber. They upgraded us, Kalen said quietly. Without permission. Without credit. The counselor's confidence wavered for the first time. Why? Kalen looked at the warning message still hanging in the air. Because this was not an invasion, he said. It was an evaluation. Another alert sounded. The unknown vessel had crossed the border again. Outbound. Leaving Imperial space entirely. But before it vanished, it transmitted one final data pulse. Short, precise, and impossible to misinterpret. A timestamp. A countdown. No units. No explanation. Just a window of time. How long? Someone whispered. Kalen did the math in his head, based on the degraded human archive and the scale of the projections. Long enough, he said, for us to choose. The chamber erupted into argument, threats, plans, demands for mobilization. But beneath it all, a new truth settled like gravity. For the first time in Imperial history, the Empire was not reacting to an enemy's attack. It was responding to a judgment. And somewhere beyond their borders, humanity was watching to see if the Empire was worth saving or worth ending. Imperial Fleet Command did not sleep. From the moment the unknown vessel left Imperial space, the Empire shifted into a state it had not used in centuries, pre-war convergence. Shipyards lit up. Reserves were activated. Admirals were recalled from ceremonial posts and leisure worlds. Not because the Empire feared destruction, but because it feared losing control. Fleet Marshal Kalen stood alone in the command spire overlooking the core shipyards. Thousands of warships hung in formation below him, their hulls gleaming with confidence built on 1,000 victories. Track the anomaly, he ordered. An officer hesitated. Sir, it's not behaving like a retreat. The projection expanded. The unknown vessel was not fleeing. It was moving along a curved path just outside Imperial borders, touching sensor range, then slipping away again. Never the same distance twice. It's mapping us, Kalen said. Or taunting us, another officer added. Kalen shook his head. No, it's waiting. The council's order arrived moments later. Force contact. Maximum containment. No escape. Kalen closed his eyes briefly. Very well, he said. Prepare the net. The trap was elegant. Ancient. Proven. 3 fleets would form a layered containment zone. Gravity wells overlapping. Interdiction fields synchronized, weapons locked but silent. No ship, no matter how fast, could move without bleeding energy. The Empire had used this tactic to capture gods. Deploy, Kalen ordered. The fleets moved. Space bent under artificial gravity. Lanes collapsed. The containment field bloomed like a cage of invisible steel. At its center, nothing. The unknown vessel was gone. A murmur rippled through the command deck. Impossible, an officer said. It was inside the net. Kalen leaned forward. Scan again. Sensor screamed. The vessel reappeared. Not inside the cage. Above it. Not spatially, conceptually. The display struggled to render its position, showing contradictory vectors at once. The ship existed in multiple projected locations, none of them stable. How is it doing that? Someone whispered. Kalen felt cold certainty settle in his bones. It's not escaping the net, he said. It's refusing to acknowledge it. The unknown vessel moved. The containment field collapsed. Not violently, not explosively. Just failed. Systems shut down as if embarrassed to continue operating. Fleet commanders shouted reports. Interdiction offline. Gravity wells are destabilizing. Power drain across all sectors. Kalen raised a hand. Hold formation. Do not fire. The unknown ship drifted forward, slow now, deliberate. It passed through the space where the Empire's trap had been with casual disregard. Then it did something new. It was transmitted again. Not words. Telemetry. Live feeds flooded fleet command. Empire sensor data. Empire fleet positions. Empire response times. All of it mirrored back with annotations. Corrections. Improvements. They're showing us our weaknesses, an officer said in disbelief. Kalen stared at the stream. No, they're showing us theirs. A ripple passed through the fleets. Several ships reported system anomalies, not failures, but enhancements. Targeting solutions became cleaner. Sensor lag dropped to 0. They're improving our ships, the officer repeated. Why would they do that? Before Kalen could answer, the unknown vessel changed course. It accelerated, not toward the fleets, toward the Empire's logistics corridor. Redirect forces, a commander shouted. Too late. The vessel passed through the corridor without firing a shot. But everywhere it went, something changed. Supply ships lost navigation. Automated depots shut down. Communication relays went silent, not destroyed, just paused. Within minutes, half the Empire's outer fleets reported resupply delays. This is not a battle, Kalen said quietly. This is a lesson. The unknown ship stopped again, just beyond weapon range. Then the Empire made its mistake. A junior admiral, eager, proud, desperate to prove relevance, issued a fire command. A single battleship unleashed a full-energy lance. The beam struck the unknown vessel dead center. For half a second, the command deck held its breath. Then the beam vanished. Absorbed, redirected, or erased. The unknown ship did not move. It did not retaliate. Instead, it transmitted one final packet, this one unmistakably intentional. The feed resolved into a reconstructed battle scenario. The Empire's own fleets, simulated in perfect detail. Human strike paths overlaid them. Red lines cut through command ships, supply hubs, political centers. Projected casualties climbed into the trillions. The simulation paused. A single marker blinked at the edge of the projection. This is a restraint model. Kalen felt the room tilt. They're telling us, he said slowly. This is the version where we survive. The unknown vessel turned away. Again. But this time, something else happened. Imperial sensors, newly upgraded without consent, picked up movement far beyond the scout's position. Not ships entering space. Ships revealing themselves. Faint at first, then clearer. Dozens. Hundreds. Formations too precise to be accidental. Distances too perfect to be coincidence. They were already here, an officer whispered. They've always been here. Kalen clenched his jaw. The scout vessel jumped. Clean, silent, impossible. Gone. In its absence, the fleets hung in stunned silence, systems humming with borrowed clarity. The council demanded answers. The admirals demanded permission to strike. But Kalen understood something now that none of them wanted to admit. The Empire had not failed to catch the unknown vessel. The Empire had been allowed to try. And humanity had just proven one thing beyond all doubt. If they wanted the Empire gone, there would be no warning. No battle. No chance to respond. This had been mercy. The question was no longer whether humanity was real. The question was whether the Empire would learn before mercy ran out. The archive vault was not meant to be opened. It sat beneath the Imperial core, sealed behind layers of authorization that no single being possessed anymore. Keys had been split, buried in succession protocols, dissolved into tradition. The Empire preferred myths over memory. Fleet Marshal Kalen broke that rule. Not publicly, not loudly, quietly. Deep within the core, an aging archivist named Sel Varen stared at the authorization codes scrolling across his console. His hands trembled, not from age, but from understanding. These codes had not been used in living memory. "You know what this is," Varen said softly. Kalen nodded. "Yes. If this archive opens," Varen continued, "it changes everything the Empire believes about itself." Kalen did not hesitate. "It already has." The vault doors slid apart with a sound like a held breath finally released. Inside was not treasure, not weapons. History. Broken timelines hovered as holograms. Star maps faded at the edges. Entire wars existed only as fragments, stripped of context and victory banners. "This section was erased on purpose," Varen said. "Someone didn't want us remembering how close we came to losing." Kalen stepped forward. "Show me the beginning." The projection shifted. A long time ago, before the Empire was stable, before borders were law, humanity appeared as a footnote. A violent world, unstable climate, high gravity, constant internal conflict. "They should never have left their system," Varen said. "By our models, they should have destroyed themselves." "They didn't," Kalen replied. "No," Varen agreed. "They adapted." The archive displayed early encounters. Human ships were crude compared to Imperial standards. Their numbers were small. Their technology is unremarkable. But the notes told a different story. Humans learned fast. Every encounter sharpened them. Every loss rewrote their tactics. They did not repeat mistakes. "They never fought us head-on," Varen said. "They avoided decisive battles. Instead, they targeted assumptions. Supply failures. Command confusion. Political pressure. Wars that ended without clear victories, but also without expansion. They didn't try to win," Kalen said. "They tried to make war pointless." The archive shifted again. A turning point. The Empire demanded integration. Tribute. Control. Humanity refused. Not loudly. Not with fleets. They simply stopped cooperating. Trade vanished. Borders blurred. Human systems became unpredictable, then unreachable. The Empire sent armadas. What followed was not recorded as a war. It was recorded as a correction failure. Imperial fleets entered human-marked space and came back, wrong. Ships intact. Crews alive, but shaken. Weapons recalibrated without authorization. Navigation charts rewritten. Tactical doctrines invalidated overnight. "They didn't destroy us," Varen said. "They embarrassed us." The archive showed the final encounter. A human delegation arrived at an Imperial staging world. No guards. No armor. Just a message. The projection played reconstructed audio. "We are not your enemy, but we will not be your subject. You may expand without limit, just not through us." The Empire voted to escalate. That was when humanity left. Not in retreat. In preparation. "They withdrew beyond our mapped space," Varen said, "and marked regions we were warned not to cross." Kalen looked at the modern star charts. The warning zones overlapped perfectly with where the scout vessel had appeared. "They were never gone," Kalen said. "They were watching." Another layer of the archive unlocked. This one deeper, more fragmented. Human doctrine. Not conquest. Containment. Humanity did not seek to rule the galaxy. They studied patterns of collapse. Empires rose, expanded, overreached, and fell, always leaving devastation behind. Humans positioned themselves at the edges of that cycle. Guardians of failure. "They saw us becoming what we swore we weren't," Varen said. Kalen felt the weight of it settle. The Empire had believed itself eternal. Humanity had predicted its decay. An alert interrupted the archive feed. Live data from Fleet Command. Human signals, more of them, were stabilizing into formation far beyond the Scouts' last position. "These are not war fleets," Varen observed. "They're too spread out." Kalen nodded slowly. "They're observers." Another message arrived. Not a warning this time. A request. The Council was demanding access to the archive. Varen laughed once, bitter. "They want answers now." Kalen closed the projection. They want reassurance. They won't find it here, Varen said. The council chamber reconvened in chaos. Voices overlapped. Accusations flew. Old confidence cracked under new data. Kalen stepped into the center and projected the archive summary. Not everything. Just enough. This is not an invasion force, Kalen said. It's a diagnostic presence. A counselor snarled. We will not be judged by a vanished species. They didn't vanish, Kalen replied. They matured. He showed them the restraint model again. But this time, he showed the alternative. No pauses. No mercy. Entire regions erased in cascading failures. This is not what they want, Kalen said. It's what they can do. The chamber fell silent. Why now? Someone asked quietly. Kalen answered honestly. Because our expansion crossed their line again. The council leader leaned forward. And what happens if we refuse to change? Kalen did not soften the truth. Then the scout will not be alone next time. As if summoned by the words, another transmission arrived. Not from the scout. From humanity's perimeter network. A simple update. Imperial fleets were being tracked, not as targets, but as variables. Evaluation phase continues, the message stated. Outcome depends on systemic behavior. The message ended there. No threat. No deadline. Just observation. Kalen understood then the most terrifying part of all. Humanity was not angry. Anger could be negotiated. Humanity was measuring. And for the first time in its history, the Empire realized it was not the center of the galaxy's story. It was a case study. And the final judgment had not yet been written. The message did not arrive through Imperial channels. It bypassed relays, ignored encryption, and slipped directly into every major command node across Imperial space at the same instant. There was no alarm this time. No warning tone. Systems simply paused, then yielded. Fleet Marshal Kalen felt it before he saw it. A sudden stillness. As if the galaxy itself had stopped to listen. Across the Empire, holograms activated on their own. Council chambers, flag bridges, defense hubs, even civilian oversight stations. The same signal appeared everywhere, impossible to block, impossible to deny. A single human figure resolved into view. Not armored, not imposing, not elevated above the viewer. Just standing, hands folded behind their back, eyes calm and alert. No symbols, no flags, no rank markings. When the human spoke, their voice was steady, almost gentle. This message is being delivered to all recognized Imperial authorities, the human said. Not as a threat, not as a declaration of war, but as a clarification. In the Grand Council chamber, no one spoke. No one breathed. You detected one of our vessels, the human continued. That vessel was not a warship. It was not a diplomat. It was a diagnostic unit. A ripple of unease passed through every listening mind. For a long time, the human said, we avoided involvement. We observed from a distance. We intervened only when collapse reached irreversible stages. The projection shifted. Star maps appeared, galactic, vast, terrifying in scale. Regions lit up and faded. Empires rose. Empires expanded. Empires fractured. The pattern was undeniable. Expansion without restraint always ends the same way, the human said. Resource exhaustion. Political instability. External aggression. Civilian extinction. Images followed. Dead worlds. Silent systems. Species reduced to footnotes. The council leader forced himself to speak. Why show us this? The human turned their gaze, somehow meeting his eyes across light years. Because you are approaching the same threshold, the human replied. And because this time, the fallout will not be contained. The display zoomed in. Imperial territory. Border regions. Trade arteries. Then red lines appeared. Thin at first, then spreading like fractures in glass. These are not invasion vectors, the human said calmly. They are failure cascades. Your systems are too interconnected. When collapse begins, it will propagate faster than you can respond. Fleet Marshal Kalen felt the truth of it settle in his chest. He had seen the signs. Overextended fleets. Political rot. Peripheral rebellions quietly ignored. You have already crossed our perimeter, the human said. Twice. Murmurs erupted across command feeds. We issued no public warning, the human continued. Because warnings invite defiance. Instead, we sent a scout. The image shifted again. The disabled patrol ships. The collapsed containment net. The restraint model. You were not attacked, the human said. You were measured. The council leader clenched his jaw. Measured for what? The human did not hesitate. Compatibility. The word echoed like a verdict. Compatibility with survival, the human clarified. With restraint. With coexistence. Another projection appeared. Two timelines. One showed the empire continuing as it was, expanding, suppressing, conquering. The collapse came suddenly. A chain reaction of war, famine, and rebellion that tore entire regions apart. The second timeline was quieter. Borders retracted. Influence stabilized. Peripheral systems granted autonomy. Military doctrine shifted from dominance to deterrence. The empire endured. Smaller. Less feared. Still alive. This, the human said, gesturing to the second path, is why we contacted you. A counselor stood, voice shaking with anger. You presume to dictate our future. The human inclined their head slightly. No. We are explaining the consequences of ignoring it. The image changed again. A new set of projections. This time, the restraint model was removed. What followed was not dramatic. It was efficient. Supply lines vanished. Command hierarchies fractured. Entire fleets became blind within minutes. Political centers isolated themselves in panic, making decisions that accelerated collapse rather than stopping it. No heroic last stand. No final battle. Just systems failing faster than anyone could adapt. This scenario, the human said evenly, requires no escalation beyond our current posture. Silence followed. Someone whispered, "How many of you are there?" The human expression did not change. Enough. That answer was worse than any number. Fleet Marshal Kalen stepped forward into the projection field. Why now, he asked. Why after centuries of silence? The human looked at him, not with hostility, but recognition. Because the scale has changed, the human said. Previous collapses were local. Yours will not be. The display widened again. Neighboring powers. Neutral coalitions. Fragile alliances. When your empire falls, the human said, it will not fall alone. The council leader swallowed. And what do you want from us? The human paused. Not long. Just long enough to remind them this was a choice. Withdraw from designated regions, the human said. Cease forced integration. Dismantle expansion fleets positioned beyond sustainable logistics. Several counselors erupted in protest. This is surrender. This is humiliation. This is the end of imperial authority. The human waited until the noise burned itself out. No, the human said quietly. This is restraint. The projection shifted one final time. A single line of text appeared. Evaluation window active. Your response will determine the next phase, the human said. Compliance stabilizes the region. Defiance accelerates correction. And if we refuse, the council leader demanded. The human met his gaze again. Then the scout will be replaced by custodial forces, the human said. Their mandate is not negotiation. The message began to fade. Wait, Kalen said. If we comply, will you help us change? The human paused at the edge of the projection. Yes, they said. But understand this clearly. Their voice hardened, not with anger, but with certainty. We will not save you from yourselves. The signal cut. Across the empire, systems resumed normal function. But nothing felt normal anymore. The council chamber was silent. No arguments. No posturing. Only the sound of an empire realizing it had just been offered a future and warned of extinction in the same breath. Far beyond imperial space, human observation fleets adjusted position slightly. No advance. No retreat. Just closer attention. The evaluation window had begun. And for the first time, the empire understood the true meaning of the words it had received at the border. This was never about conquest. This was about whether the empire deserved to continue existing at all. The empire did not answer immediately. That delay alone was noticed. Human observation arrays, vast, silent constellations of sensors hidden between stars, registered the hesitation as a measurable variable. Reaction lag. Decision paralysis. Internal conflict. Across imperial space, fleets remained in motion but without direction. Orders contradicted one another. Borders that once felt permanent now felt exposed. Fleet Marshal Kalen stood at the center of it, watching the empire struggle with something it had never learned to do. Stop. The council argued behind closed channels. Some demanded resistance, convinced that power still meant numbers and firepower. Others whispered that compliance was survival disguised as shame. Meanwhile, humanity did not wait. They moved, not as an invasion, as a demonstration. The first event occurred at the edge of a logistics hub near the outer spiral. A human vessel appeared without transition, not near the station, but inside the traffic lattice, perfectly positioned between converging supply routes. Imperial sensors barely registered it before the effects began. Cargo ships reported timing drift. Docking protocols desynchronized by milliseconds, just enough to create cascading delays. Automated scheduling systems tried to compensate and failed. Within 10 minutes, the hub was gridlocked. No explosions, no attacks, no casualties, just stillness. Fleet Command flagged it as a malfunction. Then the same thing happened elsewhere. And elsewhere, human vessels appeared briefly, sometimes for seconds, sometimes for minutes, then vanished. Each appearance coincided with a subtle disruption. Navigation errors too precise to be random. Communications lag introduced at critical junctions only. They're not cutting our supply lines, an analyst reported. They're bending them. Kalen understood. They're proving that speed is control, he said, not firepower. The council issued a partial mobilization order, hoping to project strength. Fleets surged forward, only to find their paths subtly altered. Jump points arrived a fraction too early or too late. Formation cohesion fractured without obvious cause. Humanity was not faster in the way the Empire understood speed. They were earlier. They acted before orders were finalized, before fleets aligned, before responses solidified. It felt like fighting a future that had already happened. A junior admiral finally snapped. Authorize a decisive strike, he demanded. Force them to commit. Kalen hesitated, but the council overrode him. A task force was assembled near a contested border zone. Hundreds of warships. Enough firepower to burn a system clean. They jumped together. The human response was immediate. The moment the fleet exited hyperspace, space around them shifted. Not violently. Precisely. Imperial ships found themselves out of formation. Distances between vessels increased or compressed without thrust. Command signals lagged just long enough to cause conflicting maneuvers. Then human ships appeared. Not ahead, not behind, between. Dozens of them, arranged in a pattern that made no tactical sense, until the Empire realized what they were doing. They were acting as reference points. Imperial sensors locked onto the human ships automatically, using them as anchors to stabilize corrupted data. That was the mistake. Human vessels accelerated. Not away. Through. They passed between Imperial ships at impossible speeds, not colliding, not firing, just moving. As they did, Imperial systems updated. Navigation rewritten. Sensor baselines recalibrated. Weapon locks invalidated. The fleet didn't explode. It simply lost coherence. Stand down. Kalen ordered. All ships disengage. But disengage from what? The human vessels vanished again, leaving behind a fleet that could no longer agree on where it was. Then the message arrived. Not a broadcast. A localized transmission addressed only to Fleet Marshal Kalen. This is the custodial demonstration, the human voice said. Limited scope. Minimal disruption. Kalen swallowed. You call this minimal? Yes, the human replied. No permanent damage. No casualties. Your fleets are intact. They are humiliated, Kalen said. There was a pause. Authority built on fear always is, the human replied. The transmission ended. Across Imperial space, the pattern continued. Human ships appeared near critical systems, not attacking, not occupying, but passing through. Each transit rewrote assumptions. Each appearance proved the same truth. The Empire could not outpace them. It could not corner them. It could not force engagement. Speed itself has become humanity's signature power. And the galaxy noticed. Neutral systems began closing borders, not against humanity, but against the Empire. Trade partners demanded assurances. Peripheral worlds hesitated before obeying imperial orders. Confidence, once absolute, began to leak away. The council reconvened in an emergency session. This is an invasion in all but name, one counselor shouted. Kalen stood before them, exhausted. No, this is containment. Then why does it feel like it's collapsing? Because we built ourselves on momentum, Kalen said. And they have taken it away. A new report arrived. Human vessels were now visible in civilian corridors. Not interfering, simply present. Their appearance caused panic at first, then calm. They didn't block traffic. They optimized it. Civilian ships reported smoother jumps, fewer accidents, cleaner routes. They're helping civilians, a counselor whispered. They always were, Kalen replied. We just didn't see it. The realization hit the council like a slow, sinking weight. Humanity was not dismantling the empire out of hatred. They were isolating the parts that caused suffering and stabilizing everything else. Which meant one thing. The empire was no longer the center. It was the problem. The council leader finally spoke, voice quiet. If we comply now, is it enough? Kalen did not answer. Because the answer didn't belong to him. Far beyond imperial space, human oversight arrays shifted again. The evaluation metrics updated. Compliance probability rose. Instability markers fell. But one variable remained unresolved. Leadership response under loss of dominance. Humanity had seen this before. Empires rarely accepted being slowed. They often chose to break instead. The custodial fleets did not advance. They did not retreat. They maintained position, everywhere at once, and nowhere fixed. Waiting. Because the next move would not come from humanity. It would come from the empire. And whether that move was restraint or desperation would decide everything. The empire had one secret left. It was not written in the archives. It was not debated in councils. It was not shared even among admirals. It existed only as a contingency, an answer to the unthinkable. When dominance failed, when fleets could not win, when speed itself was no longer theirs, there was final authority. Fleet Marshal Kalen learned of it by accident. A buried transmission flag surfaced during a routine systems audit, triggered by the strange sensor recalibrations humanity had forced across imperial networks. The flag was old, pre-unification old. Marks do not activate in a dialect no longer taught. Kalen followed it anyway. The data led him beneath the capital world, far deeper than the public archive vaults. There, sealed inside a gravity-stabilized chamber, slept a construct the Empire had sworn never to use. A system-scale weapon. Not a bomb. A failure engine. It did not destroy stars. It did not shatter planets. It destabilized civilization. Final authority was designed to trigger cascading collapses across hyperspace infrastructure, jump nodes, energy corridors, navigation lattices. One activation could turn half the galaxy into isolated, starving islands overnight. It had been built during the Empire's most paranoid age, then hidden when the Empire convinced itself it no longer needed fear as a tool. Kalen stood before the projection, his reflection pale against the rotating equations. This will kill billions, he whispered. It will save trillions, a voice replied. The council leader stepped out of the shadows. You were not authorized to see this, he said calmly. Kalen turned. You were not authorized to exist if this ever activates. The council leader did not flinch. Humanity has humiliated us. They have stripped us of authority without firing a shot. This ends now. This ends everything, Kalen snapped. Including us. The council leader gestured to the projections. No. It resets the board. Humanity relies on coordination, on observation, on speed. Collapse hyperspace, and even they will be blind. Kalen felt cold dread settle in his chest. You don't understand them, he said. They expect collapse. They study it. Then we will make it uncontrollable, the council leader replied. The activation sequence began. Across imperial space, subtle changes rippled through infrastructure. Power nodes primed. Relays aligned. The Empire prepared to burn the roads that connected the galaxy. Human sensors noticed instantly. Deep within humanity's observation network, alerts cascaded, not red, but black. Final authority was not just another weapon. It was a species-ending variable. Custodial protocols escalated. Human fleets shifted posture for the first time since contact. Not forward, inward. Imperial commanders felt it immediately. The galaxy grew quiet. Human ships stopped appearing in transit corridors. Civilian routes no longer optimized themselves. The constant, reassuring presence vanished. Fear rushed in to fill the silence. Fleet Marshal Kalen ran. Not to the council. To the public channel. He overrode protocol, blasted his signal across every Imperial system. This is Fleet Marshal Kalen, he said, voice steady but urgent. Final authority is being activated. This weapon will not save the Empire. It will end it. The council leader cut the feed. Too late. The message spread. Governors panicked. Peripheral worlds protested. Fleets hesitated. And humanity watched. Humanity did not strike. They revealed. A single transmission replaced Imperial propaganda feeds across the galaxy. Not a threat. Evidence. Humanity exposed final authority in full detail. Its design, its projected casualties, its irreversible consequences. Simulations played out in cold, undeniable clarity. Entire species erased by isolation. Civilizations collapsing without ever knowing why. The Empire is blamed by history for the greatest act of destruction ever conceived. The galaxy recoiled. Allies withdrew recognition. Neutral coalitions issued emergency condemnations. Peripheral systems declared immediate independence. The Empire began to tear itself apart. The Council leaders screamed orders that no one followed. And still, final authority continued its countdown. Why aren't they stopping it? A counselor cried. Kalen understood. Because this is our choice, he said. And they won't take it from us. Human custodial fleets moved, not to attack the Empire, but to shield its neighbors. Stabilization fields deployed. Emergency corridors opened. Humanity prepared to contain the fallout. They were already assuming the Empire would fail. Kalen reached the chamber. Security stood frozen, unsure who to obey. Stand aside, Kalen ordered. They did. Inside, the Council leader stood before the final control interface, hands shaking, not with fear, but fury. They will never respect us again, he snarled. Better to be feared in death than irrelevant in peace. Kalen stepped forward. You were never respected. You were tolerated. The countdown reached its final phase. Human channels opened, direct, focused, unmistakable. This is your last decision point, the human voice said, calm but absolute. Deactivate the system. And if we don't, the Council leader shouted. There was a pause. No hesitation. Calculation. Then we will intervene, the human replied. Not against your fleets. Against the system itself. You said you wouldn't save us, the Council leader spat. We won't, the human said. We will save everyone else. The implication hit like a blade. Humanity would let the Empire die, politically, economically, historically, while preserving the galaxy around it. Final authority would be neutralized. The Empire would be remembered as the species that tried to burn the stars and failed. Kalen lunged. The Council leader turned too slowly. Kalen slammed his hand down on the abort sequence. Alarms howled. Security rushed in. The countdown froze. Final authority powered down. For one terrible second, no one moved. Then the Council leader collapsed, screaming in rage and despair. Outside, across the galaxy, humanity's posture shifted again. Not advancing. Not retreating. Standing down. Custodial fleets relaxed. Stabilization protocols disengaged. The crisis passed. The Empire survived. But it did not remain whole. Systems seceded. Fleets fractured. The Council dissolved under universal condemnation. Humanity transmitted one final message. This one not broadcast, but archived across every major civilization. The evaluation is complete, it stated. The Empire has chosen restraint. Late, but sufficient. The message ended with a final note. Continuation granted. Oversight remains. Fleet Marshal Kalen stood alone in the chamber of a dead weapon, knowing the truth no one would ever forget. The Empire had not been conquered. It had stopped. And from this moment on, it would exist only because humanity allowed it to. Which meant one thing was now certain. The age of unchecked empires was over. And the galaxy would never move at the same speed again. The Empire did not fall all at once. It unraveled. In the weeks after final authority was shut down, Imperial space changed in ways no weapon could have achieved. Fleets remained intact, but no longer moved with certainty. Governors issued orders that were questioned for the first time. Peripheral systems stopped asking for permission. The Empire still existed, but it no longer owned the future. Fleet Marshal Kalen watched it happen from the quiet of a decommissioned command station. He had resigned his title the moment the Council dissolved. Not out of shame, but necessity. The Empire needed witnesses more than heroes now. Across the galaxy, humanity did not celebrate. They did not claim victory. They did not occupy worlds. They did not rewrite borders. They did something far more unsettling. They stepped back. Human custodial fleets withdrew from visible corridors, fading into the deep dark where sensors struggled to reach. Stabilization fields dissolved. Optimized routes returned to normal. The galaxy was handed back to itself. And only then did everyone understand the truth. Humanity had never wanted control. They wanted balance. A final message was released, not broadcast, not forced, but archived into every major galactic record system. Any civilization could access it. Any species could study it. It was labeled simply, "On Survival." The document was not long. It did not blame the Empire. It did not list crimes or demand reparations. It explained patterns, how civilizations that equated speed with dominance always overreached, how empires that feared slowing down eventually shattered, how unchecked expansion created instability that destroyed innocent worlds long before rulers felt consequences. Humanity explained why they watched from the edges instead of ruling from the center. Power, they wrote, corrupts perspective. Distance preserves clarity. They revealed something else too. The Scout. The first ship that triggered everything. It was old. Not ancient by human standards, but obsolete. Its systems were generations behind current human capability. Its presence alone had been enough to paralyze an empire that ruled a third of the galaxy. That revelation spread faster than any fleet. Fear followed. Not panic, but humility. If this was what humanity sent to observe, what did they keep in reserve? Fleet Marshal Kalen met the human representative weeks later. Not in a council chamber. Not on a warship. On a neutral station orbiting a quiet, nameless star. The human arrived alone. No escort. No visible weapons. Just a person. "You saved us," Kalen said once they were seated. The human shook their head. "No. You stopped yourselves." "Barely. Barely is often enough," the human replied. Kalen studied them. "Why let the Empire continue at all? You could have dismantled it completely." The human was silent for a moment. "Because collapse teaches nothing if it kills everyone involved," they said. "And because removing you would only create something worse in your absence." "Something faster," Kalen said. The human nodded. "Exactly." They explained what humanity had become during their long absence from galactic politics. Not conquerors. Not guardians in the heroic sense. Custodians of thresholds. Humanity watched for the moment when power became too concentrated, when speed outpaced wisdom, when fear replaced responsibility. They intervened not to rule, but to prevent irreversible failure. "We don't decide who leads the galaxy," the human said. "We decide when someone is about to burn it." Kalen absorbed that quietly. "And now," he asked, "what happens to us?" The human met his gaze. "You rebuild," they said. "Slower, smaller, wiser, if possible. And if we forget again?" The human stood. "Then another scout will appear," they said simply. Kalen felt a strange mix of relief and dread at that answer. As the human prepared to leave, Kalen asked one final question. "Why show restraint? Why mercy?" The human paused at the hatch. "Because we remember being underestimated," they said. "And because we know what it costs to survive alone." The station's lights dimmed briefly as the human ship departed, so fast that Kalen never saw it leave, only the absence it created. Across the galaxy, the consequences settled. Former imperial systems formed councils instead of chains of command. Military doctrines shifted from domination to deterrence. Expansion slowed, not because humanity demanded it, but because no one wanted to be the next case study. Children grew up learning a new truth, that the galaxy was vast, that power was fragile, and that somewhere beyond the mapped stars, humanity was watching, not with hatred, but with patience. The Empire's name remained in history.